1. How to deal with difficult people. While aiming for the freedom to avoid dealing with difficult people, it is also important to prepare a mindset for situations where you temporarily have no choice but to engage with them. Plans to delve deeper into how to deal with difficult people through books, offering specific examples and practical advice. Viewer participation is emphasized, and comments may be reflected in the book. 2. How to turn relationships into opportunities for growth. The goal is to reduce interactions with difficult people. But since enduring them indefinitely is tough, it's crucial to find benefits in these relationships and focus on your own growth. Pretending to be someone you're not can negatively impact your mental health and worsen the outcome of relationships and negotiations. So sustaining motivation by feeling small successes is important. By envisioning a future free from difficult relationships, you can maintain a positive outlook in daily life. 3. The importance of recognizing the end of relationships when dealing with difficult individuals. Recognizing the eventual end of the relationship can help reduce stress. Considering that the average person changes jobs 12 times, it's important to acknowledge that relationships with supervisors are not permanent. Setting goals to acquire necessary skills while working at the company makes it easier to foresee the end. 4. Safety in relationships and setting criteria for interpersonal judgments. Judge whether the person you are dealing with can be safely engaged with. Assess whether the person's rude behavior stems from misunderstandings and whether there is room for improvement. Having criteria for dealing with difficult people allows for rational decision-making. 5. How to identify dangerous individuals. Ensure that you can engage safely with difficult people and distance yourself if there's danger. Consider the reasons for rude behavior, and if it's due to a misunderstanding, seek opportunities for improvement. Judge whether the benefits of the relationship outweigh the drawbacks, and if the relationship holds value, continue it. 6. How to assess relationships and handle them at work. If a relationship with a difficult person affects your mental health or safety, there's no need to endure it. And if the stress in the workplace comes from your boss, you should consider changing jobs. When dealing with others, assess the safety, reasons for rude behavior, and the potential for future change. If these conditions are not met, you should distance yourself. If there is an opportunity for growth through unreasonable demands or criticism, recognize the value and devise a plan for the end. 7. How to protect new ideas and balance relationships. When new ideas are criticized, recognize the possibility that your thoughts may be correct. In relationships, check the influence of the other person's parents or surrounding influences in advance. And if the influence is significant, maintain distance. When dealing with difficult people, clearly define your limits. Communicate your boundaries and reduce emotional strain. 8. Managing relationships with difficult people to reduce stress. It's essential not to make exceptions in relationships and not to give special treatment to difficult people. Clearly define your standards and boundaries and communicate them to others while adhering to them. By managing expectations in advance, unnecessary expectations and stress can be avoided. 9 types of narcissists and effective ways to deal with them. With self-centered people, using questions to break down their logic is effective. There are 2 types of narcissists: the fragile narcissist, who lacks ability, and the grandiose narcissist, who is competent and hardworking. By identifying the type of narcissist you're dealing with, you can manage the relationship without being swayed. 10. How to handle self-centered types and reduce stress. With self-centered types, it's effective to repeatedly ask questions in team settings, revealing logical inconsistencies and gaining the understanding of others. While questioning works well with fragile narcissists, there's merit in engaging with grandiose narcissists since they work hard regardless of the type, avoiding one-on-one confrontation. And turning the difficulty into a shared story can help alleviate stress. 11 effective approaches for dealing with stubborn people. Simple and easy to understand explanation are effective for making stubborn people more open to accepting new information or different ideas. Timing your requests for moments when they are in a good mood, such as Friday afternoons, increases the chances of your request being accepted. By thinking like an animal and controlling the environment, you can intentionally guide stubborn individuals to act as desired. 12 effective approaches for dealing with stubborn people. Setting simple and exception-free rules and making requests when the person is in a good mood is effective for dealing with stubborn, inflexible people. When exceptions arise, it's important to improve the rules themselves. And Friday afternoons are an ideal time to make proposals. Avoid proposals that involve responsibility or risk, and work to keep the other person relaxed. 13 strategies for dealing with interference from others. When people interfere with your privacies, but there's no real impact, it's effective to just let it slide. If interference persists, consider blocking or ignoring. And if it starts to limit your actions, respond firmly. You don't need to respond to external criticism if it's not important. And it's fine to ignore things that don't affect you. 14 countermeasures for interference and ways to protect yourself. People interfere with others to demonstrate their value and show that they are a necessary part of the group. To avoid interference, it's important not to disclose personal information and to create an environment where interference is difficult. For excessive interference, it may help to respond subtly or even counter-interfere to suppress the other person's actions. 15 effective negotiation and coping strategies using humor. Using humor to respond to people who interfere with. You can soften unreasonable demands. In situations like price negotiation, jokingly responding can bring the negotiation to an end. For those who play the victim, it's best to ignore them if possible. But if you must engage, having a solid coping strategy is crucial. 16 Dealing with the victim mentality. It's recommended to keep your distance from people with a victim mentality. At work, it's best to assign them simple tasks that don't affect others. When dealing with them directly, it's important to show empathy, but ultimately to cut ties. Let me know if you would like to continue the translation or have any other requests. 17 Handling complaints, effective strategies. For complaints that are difficult to respond to, recognizing that sometimes the best strategy is not to respond can be effective. Complaints typically involve one-sided accusations, so responding thoughtfully and asking clarifying questions can help lead the conversation back to logic. It's effective to show that complaints don't affect you emotionally, and to involve others in the conversation as witnesses when needed. 18 Managing chronic complainers. When dealing with chronic complainers, limiting your emotional response and avoiding on-and-on interactions can reduce stress. Complaints often stem from dissatisfaction, so it's helpful to change the subject. Guide the conversation to a more productive direction or involve a third party. If the complaints don't stop, it's best to focus on what you can control and minimize your exposure to the complainer. 19 Strategies to handle people who refuse to apologize. When someone refuses to apologize, focusing on resolving the situation rather than demanding an apology can often be more productive. Apologies that come after a heated demand may feel insincere. So, it's effective to frame the conversation around finding solutions rather than blame. By leading with empathy and understanding, you may naturally guide the other person to recognize their fault and apologize on their own. 20 How to get apologies from self-centered people. Getting a self-centered person to apologize may be difficult because they often don't see their actions as wrong. One strategy is to subtly highlight the social consequences of not apologizing, such as damaging relationships or reputations. offering an apology first, even if you're not entirely at fault, can sometimes create a reciprocal environment, prompting the other person to apologize as well. 21. Avoiding one-sided apologies and finding balance. Avoid apologizing excessively, as this may shift the blame entirely to you and could reinforce negative behavior in the other person. Aim to apologize for your part in the situation, but encourage the other party to take responsibility for their actions as well. Use language that focuses on mutual understanding and resolution, rather than assigning blame. 22. The right way to apologize to a difficult person. When apologizing to a difficult person, it's important to maintain your boundaries and not let the apology lead to further unreasonable demands. Keep your apology focused and sincere, but avoid overly emotional language that might escalate the situation. Focus on how to prevent similar misunderstandings in the future and work toward a resolution that benefits both parties. 23. Recognizing manipulation tactics and how to respond. Manipulative people may try to control you emotionally, so it's important to recognize their tactics and stay emotionally detached. Be cautious of individuals who use guilt, fear, or obligation to manipulate you into doing something you won't.